And I'd like to thank Rab and the group that's here for allowing me to come along and talk about the Battle of Inverkeithing, later called the Battle of Pitreavie. I'm starting at the very beginning because I feel this is a place to start because it is pertinent to this story and it is about the birth of Charles I. And Charles I, as you know, he was a great bairn. He wasn't well. And he used to annoy his parents by at night, you know, getting away there. And they had a nursie. And nursie one night Charles heard her scream. You know, the bairn, she shouted. Oh, he says, it's that greeting brat again. And he got up out of his bed and went through, because it was in the next room, kept closed. And she says, oh, she says, it's the bairn, and it's been crying. What's wrong with you, nursie? He says. And she says, well, an old man came into the room and he cast a cloak right over the baby and cradle and all as if he was going to take it away with him. Oh, said the king, for goodness sake, it's a pity he hadn't taken the bairn in the cradle and all. It'd be better for us. Now remember, he was demonology. And demonology was when he was coming over with his queen. The sea was like this. He was lucky he arrived and he blamed the witches and that for it. And that's how witchcraft came into Scotland. And it was terrible. It wasn't witches and warlocks. However, so he blamed that and he instantly saw there's something in this. Fiend had taken the girnin bairn clean awa, the king said. And the nurse, and he gave the king that there been nae good in the reign. The deil had caused his cloak o'er him already. And that was the basis of Charles's birth. He had rickets in his legs, and in the palace in Dunfermline there was a long, lovely big room where he used to practice walking. And when James VI and the family went down to England, they left him behind because he was sickly, he was poor, and it took many years. He always had rickety thin legs, like his father. His father had wee thin legs as well. I better not talk about him, I know. Anyway, off they went. So, you see, they went down to England, and Charles eventually joined them down there. And eventually, his father, of course, died in, he died, I think, in 1625, round about then. Of course, his brother Henry had died too. He wasn't very old when he died, so it was Charles. And Charles thought he was God on earth and started to act that way down south, all over the country. Caused an awful lot of problems. The parliamentarians had enough of it. They said they're not on. What did they do to Charles? We don't talk about it in Dunfermline. It's not in many books about it because he got his head chopped off. That was terrible, you know. Who took over? Oliver Cromwell. Smart, if you know what I mean. And he took over and he made, in England, he actually, there was a civil war all round and he got his own way. And then he thought, well, Lord of the English, I'll now go to Scotland. What about Charles II, Charles' son? Well, he flew away, of course, and got out of England while it was all lasting, this civil war. And cocky little Oliver Cromwell came up into the Forth with his ships, and he made a plan. Of course, Dunfermline, you know, always has been, although people don't recognise it, an important place in Scotland. It was a capital at one time, but it goes further and further back than that. So he set forth and stopped in the Forth and made his way over the hills, the Ferry Hills, or the other, as you call them. But there was a garrison there, and the garrison there tried hard, it was always there, and tried hard to stop them. So they were stopped, there was a lot killed and things like that. Meantime, word gets round, as you know, it does. And there was seemingly a barracks in Buntyland, and then sent to Stirling. And to Stirling overcame I think it was really John Brown and General James Holborn. And they came over. Now, Holborn was a funny man. They brought their cavalry and they bought their men, of course. Where did they come? How did they come from Stirling Quick over to Inverkeithing and to Pitreavie? Think about it. How did the saint, St Columba, send his missionaries? There's only one way. How did the people in Dunfermline go to Bannockburn? It's the Ochil Hills. So they came all the hills and down to the battle. Already there'd been a slaughter on the Ferry Hills, and they offered to bury the dead there in the blooming trenches that died in that. But oh no, that didn't happen, because this what's his name, James Holborn, he didn't like fighting with the English. And so the Ferry Hills, it wasn't trains and things like that now, and there was a golf course on it and all this carry on. It was the hills that were there protecting Inverkeithing and whatnot. You can see it, these big hills that were there. And if you look at these hills, or go on to these hills, or when you're going through in a train, you can visualise that this was a big area where there was a lot of dead lying, because he brought 2,000 men with him, and we didn't have anything like that at all. And there's a difference in everybody's story. How many men did Overton bring with him, and how many did the Scots have with him? Well, of course, they were forced from the Ferry Hills down to the plains. The Highlanders were there, the Macleans were there, the Buchanans were there, and the Dunfermline folk came down to fight in the battle. Well, these Cromwell's men, they had modern equipment. They had all the modern up-to-date to fight with. What did our Highlanders have? Our Highlanders had the battle axe, and it was hopeless. The forks that they would use, and this and that and that and that. It was a massacre, a sheer massacre. And it was the defence, it was just hopeless. Everybody knew it was hopeless. It was this modern army that was fighting these blooming just people, the Highlanders, who really were worn out in a way, already worn out in that, but would fight to the death like this here. The Macleans and the Highlanders and others were pushed up to the castle walls. Now, who owned that castle? Why didn't they open the doors and save them all in and bring them in? Why? Do you know who that Wardlaw was? He was Chamberlain to Anne of Denmark, the wife of James VI of Scotland, first of England, VI of Scotland. She made her a Chamberlain. She gave him, Wardlaw's, her burial plot at the side of the Abbey up in Dunfermline. There's a wee chamber there that was made. And her youngest son, Robert, who was a baby, died young. He was buried within there. And it was supposed to be for the others, but they went down to England, you see. So Wardlaw was really a royalist. He was really, in a way, I don't understand why he would not open his doors, because they were the parliamentarists in England who wanted to take over. But he didn't. They threw stones down and everything else down and killed a lot of them below the walls. It was murderous. It was unforgivable. It was terrible. And as the battle went on, the cavalry and the other men, Holborn turned his back. He could see the defeat. Turned his horse round and left him. And he was called a traitor. He was a traitor to the Scotland. And that was whispered at the firesides of the people when they meet together in the evenings. No televisions, no electricity, do nothing. Huddle round a fire. Tell the stories of your genealogies of your families. Tell the stories of the battles. And this was in 1651, which we don't think is very long ago. The people in the Dunfermline and the villages and all over Scotland? Or was it told all over Scotland? We don't know. But it was a massacre, and they would tell the story. There was lots of stories told. He'd come from the bar, he had one there, he was going to go to, oh, you know, he went all over the place, and he went back up in Stirling Castle and got rid of him. So anyway, it was not a good scene at all for anybody. They went away, Oliver's lot. Now, Oliver did not come over to the battle. He stayed in Edinburgh. Do you know why? Because, you see, he wanted this. He wanted to come to Dunfermline, but you see, the Rosyth Castle belonged to the Stuarts, and he was related to the Stuarts. Yeah. So he was a Stuart, cousin's cousin, something like that. But we have, you know, often genealogists help. And the boy in charge at that time was obstinate James Stuart. He was an obstinate person. And he, at that time, some stories say he came over to the castle. You should go to the castle. The castle's wonderful to go to. You can get keys and go into it. And they've repaired floors and whatnot. It's a good visit. You'll see bullet holes around the doors and whatnot. But anyway, so he didn't want to come and witness this. He did it from Edinburgh side. And the massacre, fires, this, that, the horror, the nightmare of it all. But the castle, it's all political. The Stuarts, you put on the castle there and on the Stuarts. And there's someone maybe even put together something on Rosyth Castle itself. Poetry boy. And it is something that could be done because it ties in with all what was happening politically and taken over Scotland by Oliver Cromwell. Today, it's so sad when you go down there. It's terribly sad because some of the men stayed behind and they thought, oh boy, we're in for a good thing here. We've beaten a lot of them. Dunfermline's ours. We've got up the Toon, you came. And they passed the Spittal Cross. There was a cross at Aberdare Road there. It's called the Spittal Cross. There's a remnant of it found in the middle of the road, and it's at the side. And they went up to where St Leonard's was, which is by Margaret, who prepared it for her ladies in waiting and that. As a widow's place, a hospital. It was a leper hospital as well. And they went in there and they knocked it all down, you know, just what you do, a graveyard and everything there. And they made their way up to that Abbey church. What did they do? They stole the money out the poor box. Of course they would do that. And what did the women of the town do? They were the winners. They won the battle. So what did they do? And they got into trouble from the court records. It's in the court records of the Abbey. It was terrible. Today, they built houses on part of the battle. And that was terrible. But prior to that, there is today a wood where I was told, Deacon Toot was in it, told that every tree there was planted for a dead Scotsman. Now, whether that was possible or not, because the numbers are absolutely horrific of how many died and how many were wounded and how many... there was only 60 killed of Cromwell's men and about 40 injured, something like that, whereas us, it was a massacre, sheer massacre. And so there's a wood there you can go into and see the trees, and mind you, it's a long time ago, it's still there. I don't know if there's a sign, but it certainly tells you. My friend who lived in one of the new cottages down there, she was normal, just normal, wife, children, and they got this new house, and she used to see in her bedroom a Cromwellian, a soldier used to appear in her bedroom. It never frightened her, but she knew he was there. And I can remember she used to come into my wee, I used to sell wool and baby stuff at one time into the shop and tell me these stories of long ago. She was Mrs. Edwards and she saw the ghost. And then my other friend, Dr. Jameson, who was an Ayrshire doctor. He used to have his waistcoat and his spats and his chain, and he was a historian. His favourite was the twins in the Tower in London that were murdered. And here again, he did not like Oliver Cromwell, and he was waiting and told me repeatedly until he went through the veil and met him on the other side, when he would have a few words to say to him about the records that he took from Scotland away down there. So I never got to ask him if I met him once we went through the veil, but you never know. But I'm sure he would have a few words to say, because the loss and what he did was dreadful, Oliver Cromwell to Scotland. And Douglas Spears, of course, who's a friend of mine too, great friend. Douglas, he was involved and knew about the pits that contained the dead men. There's only some of the pits have been found. Where are the others? Where are these poor souls? And as you have said earlier, about the parents, the mothers, the children, the grandchildren at home, wondering if their loved one was going to come back, and they didn't. And then there's a story with the Macleans, and we don't know which battle it's from, but it's about the headless drummer who goes around. And although he's dead, you know, he's still drumming away, because his love for his clan and for his chief and for Scotland, and the Highlanders who came down to help us in our time of need from all over. The Buchanans were already wiped out at Culloden, and they're what was left. They're more or less lost her. And the other people, the Dunfermliners themselves, our own people, there's nothing for them. There's nothing really. So I think the site of the battle has been designated by Historic Environmental Scotland in their inventory of historic battles. It's not enough. It's because they've been forced to recognise there was a famous battle there, as famous as almost Bannockburn, where the loss was horrific, with the horrors that happened on a battlefield by one side being modern in their day and on our side just being a slaughter. And it's very sad that we don't remember them today, or that we don't do something with the site that we know and that we've all had associations with. I played golf in Pitreavie Golf Club. I used to play school hockey on the pitch down there, went down and met people who were involved in recital. The railway shoved through it, the people were still on the other side. It's all a site that is now a memorial site and should be recognised as such, a memorial site of the Battle of Inverkeithing, Pitreavie. Although the Battle of Inverkeithing was on the Ferry Hills and the other hills, you can imagine a slaughter up there of all these 1,700, and then they sent for more and brought it back, or 1,600 brought it back to 2,000. And then the battle on the hills, there would just be slaughters there. And so with nothing there, nothing on the hill to say there was an important battle fought here, so that Scotland did not become civil war and being belonged to England at that time by Oliver Cromwell. Thank you very much.